What's up, everybody? GeauxBurns climbing back up upon Mount Soapbox for yet another rant. And this one's going to lean in the political spectrum. We're going to talk about violence. Violence in video games, violence elsewhere as well, because I consider it all tied together. Now, as most of you know, unfortunately, in the United States, there have been several mass shootings over the past year, and a lot of innocent people have died. Now, politicians, the mainstream media, family groups blame a variety of things, one of which is violent video games like Grand Theft Auto 5 and Grand Theft Auto Online. Now, the sales numbers for Grand Theft Auto 5 indicate that over 50 million copies of this game have been sold on last and current gen consoles for over the past 2 years. And bear in mind, this is only one of many violent video games that have been rolling out for the past few years and at least decade or so now. So if the mainstream media was right, if politicians were right, if so-called groups were right, there would be a lot more violence going on in the world than there is right now. Say, for example, with Grand Theft Auto 5, with over 50 million people playing the game, overall, there isn't 50 million people going out running people over and shooting up convenience stores. There isn't 25 million or 10 million or a million or even 1,000 gamers influenced by Grand Theft Auto 5 or other violent video games that have gone out to carry out atrocious acts of violence, death, mayhem, and destruction. And yet, violent video games still get some of the blame from all those various groups that I mentioned, despite the fact that there is rating systems throughout most countries which indicate whether or not a game is suitable for adults, teenagers, or children. In the United States, Grand Theft Auto 5 has an M rating. Means that in order to purchase this game, you either have to be an adult or you have to get an adult to buy it for you. Be it your parents or Crazy Fred down the alleyway that'll do anything for a bottle of booze. But for whatever rhyme or reason, violent video games are one of the issues, along with guns, that face the biggest scrutiny from these groups that I've mentioned one too many times. However, violence in human civilization is nothing new. We've been quite familiar with each other for a very, very, very long time. Where does it end? Okay, so we ban violent video games. What about violent TV shows or violent movies? Violent comics, violent graphic novels, violent books, or violent Shakespearean plays? Are violence featured in news media? Because that is promoting violence in a way whenever they show off a war or violent atrocity or an attack carried out in various countries. That is, in a way, promoting violence. So where does banning quote-unquote violence end with Demolition Man, where we're living in the utopian city of San Angeles where everything is illegal and forbidden, and even if you say a cuss word, you will be fined? The point is, violence is nothing new when it comes to our civilization. Unfortunately, it sucks, but that is a reality. But at the same time, the majority of people are not violent. The majority of gamers are not violent. Even if they get pissed off playing Grand Theft Auto 5 and Grand Theft Auto Online, like I do on occasion, I'm not going to hop into my truck and go run over people and start shooting up my town. Because I understand the difference from reality to fantasy. Violent video games, violent TV shows, movies, comics, graphic novels, books, and plays are all fantasy works of fiction. They're enjoyable, they make for a great escape, but at the end of the day, it's not reality. Another thing that's blamed for all this violence that happens is a gun. An inanimate object is responsible for killing all these innocent people in schools, theaters, and on military bases. By the way, all those locations that I've mentioned were gun-free zones, meaning that the students, that the soldiers, that the people that went to go watch a movie could not bring in a concealed carried firearm to protect themselves from these psychopaths that chose to go into the theater, into the schools, into these various military bases, and commit violence against unarmed civilians. But it's the gun's fault. It's violent video games' fault. It's not the individual's fault who carried out these atrocities. Like an annoying parrot, the media says that crap time and time again, while at the same time, I notice that a lot of their ad dollars are coming from big pharma companies, spilling out pills that cause very questionable psychoactive side effects to people that take them. Yet why aren't these big pharma companies being scrutinized and blamed for potential violence? Because a lot of these mass shooters were on some of these pills. It's just interesting that we live in a society that demonizes violent video games, demonizes gun ownership, yet at the same time, the governments that are trying to edit and censor violent video games and take away guns from citizens that own guns in gun countries like the United States, at the same time continue to promote war, spending millions and millions of dollars a year on war, which is a lot more violent than video games are gun ownership by citizens. Now, the answer to that question is the same as the big pharma money. Money, that's right, dollars, pounds, euros, yen. War, like big pharma pills, is big money. So as long as there's a big money industry involved, the wars will continue. The big pharma pills will continue to be poured out for public consumption no matter what the side effects happen to be. Demonizing somebody that plays violent video games or happens to be a gun owner is a very negative stereotype. It would be like me going up to somebody that loves hitting a punching bag a few times a day for exercise or to simply work out some frustration from having a rough day or week. I'm not going to go up to them and say, you want to go out on the street and start randomly beating the shit out of people because you're hitting that punching bag. The point I'm making, just because somebody likes to hit a punching bag a few times a day, a week, or a month, doesn't mean they're going to go do that crap. What this comes down to is not blaming violent video games or any other violent forms of entertainment, or guns, or punching bags. What it comes down to is actually holding individuals accountable for their actions. Statistically, in the United States, more people are killed with cars than with guns, yet we're not going out there banning automobiles. Why? Because we hold the individuals responsible whenever they decide to get behind the wheel after a night of drinking, and then they plow into a family and kill them all. It wasn't the car, it wasn't the booze, it was the person who chose to get behind that vehicle when they were clearly in no condition to be driving. In conclusion, violence is nothing new. It's part of our culture. It's part of our history. We've had it since the time of the cavemans or Eden or wherever the hell we came from in ancient civilizations leading up to the Industrial Revolution, modern wars, and whatever lies for humanity in the future. Violence will always be around, but what it comes down to is the individual who must always be held accountable for his or her actions, not because they happen to enjoy a violent TV show or a movie or video game, and the weapon of choice they chose to wield, be it a gun, sword, axe, spears, bombs, bows, arrows, or rocks, cannot be held accountable either.